Hey everybody, my name is Melissa Rush. I'm an Arizona realtor. And if you are here, you're probably thinking about moving to Gilbert, Arizona or the local area. I'm going to cover some pros and cons of living in the area today. And first you might wonder, who am I and why would I know anything about Gilbert, Arizona? Well, I have lived in the area for over 23 years now. I moved here in 1996 in my early 20s. So you can do the math. I don't want to. But I've lived in Mesa, Arizona. I lived in Scottsdale for a few years, Chandler for a couple years, and then I've lived in Gilbert primarily probably 21 years now. So my family is here. My kids were born here. I have seen the area grow, and I know it really, really well. There is no possible way I can put everything I know in one video. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can follow along on future videos that will give you more information about the area. So first, on the first page is a picture of the Gilbert Water Tower. It was built in 1925 when Gilbert was a whopping 500 residents. Obviously, it's no longer functioning, but it is a symbol of the agricultural roots that Gilbert has grown from. So Gilbert still has some functioning farms and some dairy farms, and it's very flat land. But we have grown from those 500 residents 98 years ago to over 279,000 residents and still growing. So let's hop in and talk about where Gilbert actually is, and then we'll get into those pros and cons. All right, so I screenshot this map and it says Gilbert is around 30 minutes from Phoenix, which in maybe 11 o'clock at night, that might be true. If you're trying to go in rush hour, it is probably 45 minutes to an hour. But that's pretty reasonable if you do need to commute down to Phoenix, or if you want to go see a Diamondback game or go downtown to a play or to do something like that. But if you hear East Valley or West Valley, a lot of times people say that, and if you're not from the area, you probably don't even know what that means. So West Valley is anything on the west side of Phoenix, obviously. That would be Buckeye, Laveen, Surprise, and cities like that. East Valley is anything on the east side, starting with Scottsdale, Tempe, Mesa, Chandler, Gilbert, and then Queen Creek and Santan Valley. So the valley started in the center and sprawled out, and it continues to sprawl out. So we've seen so much growth out from Queen Creek and Santan Valley, and then even Casa Grande and down to Maricopa. So everything just keeps expanding out. If you're looking for a home in like Tempe, you're going to find an existing home. If you're looking to do a new build, you're going to have to kind of expand in the outer realm, because that's where the land is and that's where they're building. That being said, Gilbert is right in the middle. Everything, we'll get into traffic a little bit and talk about that, but it's laid out in a grid. So you're really, 13 minutes to Chandler, maybe 20 minutes to Mesa, maybe 30 minutes to Tempe. You're really centrally located in Gilbert. It's not hard to get anywhere. So now we know where Gilbert is. We're going to look at these pros and cons in this video. Weather, I have put in both categories. Just a note, we have had record heat this week. If you've watched my shorts, yesterday we broke a record at 119 degrees. So don't let that scare you off from moving here. We'll talk about weather in a minute. As I said, weather can be a pro or a con, just, I guess, depending on whether you like heat, right? I grew up in Indiana where the weather is rainy, gloomy, cloudy, gray. And when I got out of college, I just needed to get out of there. Like, I had lived in Michigan because I went to college in Michigan, and I was done. So I moved to Arizona literally like months after I graduated, and I never looked back. So for me, the heat is wonderful. And most people can endure the 2 months of summer heat for the 9 months of absolutely beautiful weather that comes in the fall, winter, and spring. So right now we are having, as I mentioned, record temperatures, 117 to 119 degrees. It's a little miserable out there, I'm not going to lie, even though it's a dry heat. So our humidity is sitting probably in the 20% range, where if you're in Florida, you hit that 80-90% range, and it's definitely more sticky We're not there. We do have monsoon season rolling in, so it's going to get a little more humid and sticky, but these are a little bit more hot, unusual temperatures. I mean, not to say that it isn't always hot in the summer, but we usually stay inside in the AC. We hop in the pool a lot. So there are ways to stay cool, just like in the winter, you guys stay indoors, right? If you're in the East Coast and there's a blizzard, you stay indoors to stay warm. We stay indoors to stay cool. That being said, when the East Coast is buried in snow and we turn on the TV and we're like, oh my gosh, like there was a blizzard. We're like looking outside going, it's sunny and clear and let's go for a walk. So there's tons of things to do outside. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But while you guys are shoveling snow, we are still wearing our flip-flops and we are proud of it. So we may be in hoodies and jeans, but we're in our flip-flops and we are happy, warm, and we absolutely love the weather out here. So, you know, like I said, kind of depends. Are you a warm weather person or are you a cold weather person? Now, if you are a cold weather person, you have the option of going up towards Flagstaff. So this year we had a little wetter, colder winter in Flagstaff. There was a ton of snow and they actually had sunrise slopes open until Memorial Day. I think it was pretty much like slush by that time. But where else can you go skiing in the winter, like during the day, and then make a 2-hour drive down to Phoenix and sit by the pool? Like you can't do that anywhere else other than Arizona. All right, I'm going to hang out down here. This one's a little long, so bear with me. But schools are so important if you're moving here and you're a family. So I put it in a pro. So if you're looking out there and you see that Arizona ranks at the bottom nationally, right? It's because overall as a state, we have some areas that do perform poorly. But East Valley schools are actually pretty good. And I've been really happy overall with my kids' education. So if you go out to greatschools.org, you can research the schools and see that they've actually overall performed very well. That being said, anytime you're moving, I always recommend using a seasoned realtor. And that's no exception for Gilbert because we love the art of confusion here when it comes to what neighborhood maps to what school district. It's not just blanketed everything maps to Gilbert Unified. So for instance, if you live in North Gilbert, like Morrison Ranch, you will map to Gilbert Unified. If you live in Bridges, a little further south, it maps to Higley Unified. And then right next door, just south of there, in Marbella Vineyard and then Seville Golf and Country Club, they map to Chandler Unified Schools. So to make things more confusing, I'm just going to throw this out there. Seville actually was built on Queen Creek land. They have Gilbert, they're annexed into Gilbert, they have Gilbert addresses, but they are mapped to Chandler schools because when the community was built, the builder felt like that was the best of all worlds. So whether that's true or not, that's to be debated. But you want to know that going in, right? So it's important to know a realtor that understands that so that you can do your research and know what schools your kids are mapped to. Your calendar for this school year is also going to depend on what school system because they all vary just slightly. But let's talk about that because if you're moving here from the East Coast and for instance, and your kids start school in September, our kids started school yesterday, July 19th. So you want to keep that in mind. Chandler does a modified year-round school year where we have 2 weeks off in the fall, 2 weeks off in the winter, 2 weeks off for spring break, and then a 6-week summer. So it's a little bit different. And if you are used to going back in September and thinking that that's when you're going to move to start school, you might want to shift your timeline and just make sure you're doing what's best for your kids and your family. Now, we do also have school choice. That's been in the news recently because we've had some legislation that's let some funds pay for schools that like private schools, to give parents other choices. But we have some charter schools, a lot of options there. And we also have some private schools, Christian schools, Catholic schools that are options for if you don't want to go to the public schools. Gilbert, For upper education, we have University of Arizona is 2 hours away in Tucson. We have Grand Canyon University out in Phoenix. And then, of course, we have Arizona State University in Tempe. So those are all very accessible if you have kids or going into college or need a higher education. All right, so statistically, Gilbert's considered a safe place to live and visit. The town consistently ranks as one of the safest communities in the United States. Property crimes and violent crimes are generally lower than the national average. So the community really kind of has a feel of general overall safety. But that doesn't mean you can just let your guard down. We still are a large town. 280,000 people is not small. We are a suburb of a metropolitan 5 million people city of Phoenix. So I don't let my kids run around by themselves. Like I grew up in Indiana and we would ride our bikes and be gone all day and come back. Like that's not how my kids grew up. They're teenagers now actually. But overall Gilbert's relatively safe. And so that's why I kept it as a pro. Now let's talk about entertainment because that is definitely a pro in my book on Arizona. It is an outdoor living state. So if you want to be outdoors, like Arizona is probably for you. We have hiking, we have biking, we have swimming, we have, just walking if you just like to be outside. There are all of the sports teams, like the hockey is Coyotes. We have the Arizona Diamondbacks. My family are huge baseball people. We have the Cardinals football team. There's skiing if you go up to Flagstaff. There's just so many things to do here. So entertainment is definitely a pro in my eyes. You can go to downtown Phoenix and do all the city type things. We have fine dining. We have splash pads and resorts. So a lot of times in the summer, people do what they call staycations. I had never heard of that in Indiana when I grew up, but basically people will go book a hotel in, if they live in Gilbert, they might go to Scottsdale for the weekend and pretend that they're on vacation, even though they really just went like 45 minutes away from their house. So, again, just lots and lots and lots of things to do here, which I absolutely love. And then lastly, we're going to hit employment. So let's talk about that. So my last pro is going to be the economic opportunity or employment. I didn't touch on healthcare, but that will kind of fall into this category only because we do have such a diverse healthcare field. So if you are a doctor, a nurse, a radiologist, x-ray tech, there are plenty of jobs here for you. We have Banner Health Systems. We have Gilbert Mercy. Healthcare systems up in Scottsdale. We have Mayo Clinic. We have the Cancer Centers of America, I think it is called. And so we have technology, we have Intel, we have Amazon distribution centers. A lot of businesses are looking to Arizona because of the favorable tax situations. So just a lot of business opportunity, a lot of diversity in the environment. And so I feel like it's a lot of growth opportunity here. There's also a lot of small business here. I find a lot of entrepreneurship. Like we have a ton of, you have to have contractors, right? So we have a ton of plumbers, electricians that have built fabulous businesses. And there's just so much growth and opportunity here that I see it as a great opportunity and a great pro. All right, so my first con was weather, and that was just because of the extreme heat in the summer. And we talked about that, so I'm not going to belabor it any longer. So we're going to move on to traffic. And traffic is only because of our growth. Because we've grown so quickly, especially people like me who have been here a while get a little frustrated because we can see that there's more traffic than there used to be. If you're new here, it might not bother you. And it's probably a whole lot less than if you're living in LA right now and coming here from there. So it's all in perspective, right? But I put it under con because it is a little frustrating sometimes. If you do not have to commute during rush hour, like 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., then of course you can alleviate some of that headache. Gilbert, the city, has been trying to do some road construction to help alleviate some of the traffic concerns. But with that also comes some delays if you have to avoid those roads. So just keep that in mind. Now, the good news is we are very close to a lot of freeways that get us to wherever we need to go pretty quickly. We have the 202 Santan Freeway, the 60, and then the North 202. And you can hop on any of those, get to the I-10, and get pretty much anywhere within Arizona and then out that you want to go to. Gilbert does not have a lot of public transportation. There is the Valley Metro bus system, but the light rail that goes through Phoenix stops in Mesa, so it really doesn't come down here. You can park up there, hop on it, like if you wanted to go to a Diamondback game, say, and then, park in Mesa, ride it in, come back, and then drive home. So you can use it. It just doesn't come all the way down to the city. So, it's not horrible. But I did put traffic as a con just because it's kind of a work in progress. Okay, so when I put the picture of the rattlesnake up, it actually moves and rattles, and my dogs freaked out. They innately know that that's a bad sound. So anyway, we do have critters in Arizona. And when I moved out here in 1996 as a 22-year-old, I swore if I ever saw a scorpion, I was going home and I was never coming to Arizona again. Well, let me tell you, I have seen plenty of scorpions. I have killed them myself, and I am never leaving Arizona. They are manageable. So will you see one? Probably. Could it be in your house? Absolutely. People say, how can I buy a house without a scorpion? And it's just a fact of life out here, but you don't need to be afraid of them. And I can do a whole video on how to manage them, but we are well into this video, so I'm not going to talk about how to manage them here. When I talk about other critters like the rattlesnakes and bobcats and coyotes, they are here. We will see a coyote once in a while down in Gilbert. The snakes and bobcats and things like that really stay more towards the mountains. So unless you are moving close to the edge of a mountain and you're not in a developed HOA type community, you're probably not going to run into any of those. I do have friends that live close to the mountain in Mesa. They have seen rattlesnakes. I don't know how they do it because I don't think that I could, but there are beautiful, beautiful homes that live, at the base of the mountains and stuff, and they just deal with it. But again, it's a con, but not something that would keep me from the state. All right, so hopefully you have hung in there with me. We are down to the cost of living, and I put it as a con because it definitely has increased throughout the time that I have lived here. And of course, everywhere across the country has increased this year. We all have kind of felt that impact. So Gilbert is considered to be a fairly affluent suburb. Scottsdale's probably the most affluent suburb of Phoenix. Gilbert is a very family-friendly suburb, but the cost of living is about 18% higher than the national average, and it's about 12.9% higher than Phoenix. Most of the significant increases over the last year have been like anywhere else in gas and food. I think we're about 3% higher than the national average. And then our utility prices are about 6% higher than the national average. And it's especially true in those summer months because when we're hitting record heat and that AC is running, we definitely have some high electric bills in the summer. Our sales tax is 7.8%. And then, the price of home is really going to depend on where you're coming from. So the annual average salary in Gilbert is $62,000. The average hourly pay salary is around $45,000. But the home prices are a little bit higher. So if you're buying a condo, that $45,000 property or salary might be okay for a $315,000 property. But if you're trying to buy a home, the median list price is $670,000. So it's probably not going to be enough to get you into that house. You might need a bigger down payment or a dual income family going in on that house. So like I said, a little bit higher cost of living, and that's why I put it in the con category. I'm getting a little tired here myself, guys. So Arizona has the 5th lowest property tax rate in the U.S., though, at 0.51%, so that's great. The average property tax payment is $1,700 a year, and I've had people come from other states and they're like, "Oh my God, we pay like $7,000 a year." So, I mean, I think that's a pro on that side. It depends, I guess, on where you're coming from. If you are coming from California, LA, New York, Chicago, the cost of living is probably not going to be that bad. But if you're coming from a smaller town in the Midwest, might feel like a sticker shock. Whew, that was a lot, guys. If you are still here, thank you for listening. I hope you have something to take away. Like you, I always have questions if I'm going somewhere, but if you are thinking about moving to Gilbert, Chandler, Mesa, Scottsdale, Phoenix, any of those surrounding areas, I'm sure you have tons of questions. I have answers for you. And if I don't have answers for you after 25 years of living here, I know where to get the answers for you. So please follow along. If you are thinking about moving to the area, be sure to reach out. I will answer the email, the phone call. You get me. So I am here for you. Have a great week. Have a great day. And I hope that you subscribe. And until next time.